Hello everyone. So today I thought I would do a video where I talk about the books I'm reading and the books I plan to read this year because I have a lot and I've separated them into some categories for everyone. So let's get into it. So I think this is a good thing to do right in the beginning of the video. I would love for you to hit that like button and subscribe and comment and ring that bell. It really helps out a small channel and it helps with engagement so much. So if you feel so inclined, you can do that. If not, that's okay too. Thank you for just watching the video. Okay, on to the TBR. So the first category I have is books I'm currently reading. And there are 4 books I'm currently reading right now. 2 are poetry, 1 is a manga, and 1 is a novel. I lied, there are 2 novels, but one I'm listening to on audio. So the first category is poetry. The first book I'm reading is The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe. So very classic. I'm trying to get into classics. This book is a collection of his poetry. So yes, this is the first one I'm reading. I read The Raven, the first poem, and it was good, very whimsical. And now I know why everything is called Nevermore. Like the school and Wednesday. So the next poem book I have is Selected Poems of Emily Dickinson. And I like these. I've read probably about 20 poems. I'm only on page 11. You have to digest them and you also have to search up what they mean because it uses a lot of old English that I read it and I say, what? Then I search it up and I'm like, oh. Actually, that's pretty cool. Now onto the category of manga. So I'm currently only reading 1 manga volume right now, and that is Spy Family Volume 6. I've read the first 5 volumes and I loved the first 2 and now it's going a little downhill for me. It's getting a little boring, honestly. I feel like it's becoming literally just slice of life. We've had 8 volumes and out of the 5 I've read, not that much plot has taken place. So Spy Family is about this spy named Twilight sent on a mission to gather information on one of the top political leaders in the country he is at war with. For this mission, he has to get and enroll his child into the academy where political leader's son is enrolled. And the whole gag is the daughter he picks is a telepath and his wife is an assassin. And they all have these secrets. So yeah, that's what it's about. And it's cute. The next 2 books I have on my currently reading list are both novels. And the first novel I'm physically reading is Legendborn. I'm rereading this so I can go into the second book knowing everything and not being lost at all. And I love this book. I already gave it 5 stars. It's one of my favorites. Definitely a favorite YA fantasy. This book is about this girl named Brianna Matthews, whose mom died in a tragic car accident. She enrolls in a Chapel Hill University high school program for gifted high school students in order to run away from home and avoid her grief. On her first day there, she is attacked by a magical demon and learns that there is this secret society of demon hunters called Legendborn, and it has something to do with King Arthur. I just love it. I think the main character is wonderful. I think the love triangle is surprisingly kind of fun. Like, I'm usually not a love triangle person, but I'm into it. It deals with a lot of really good themes. I'm just very pleased with this book. So the next book I have, I'm listening to on audio, and that book is Renegades by Marissa Meyer. Renegades is about a world where there are 2 sides of superheroes. The Renegades, who are basically the good guys, and the anarchists, who are the bad guys. We follow 2 POVs, one from Adrian, who wants to become a renegade, and one from Nova, who is an anarchist and wants to do anything to get her revenge on the Renegades for killing her uncle. And it's good so far. I read like 100 pages a while ago, but I was like in the middle of so many books that I had to put it down and finish other ones. So now I'm gonna listen to the audiobook. All right, for the next category, we have my audiobook TBR. So the first book I have on my audiobook TBR is Call Me By Your Name. I've had this book for I think like 5 years and I just need to read it. I've tried to read it like 3 times and I would get 50 pages in and then I would stop. I think I'd find something else to read and it would be more interesting to me. But I love the movie and I want to finish this book, so I'm going to do audiobook version of it, which always helps me finish a book. This book is about a boy named Elio, and his parents invite over a guest to stay at their summer house in Italy, and it's about their summer romance. I really like the movie. I'll read the book and see what I think. So the next book I have is The Puppy War. I have also read about 100 150 pages of this book. I read it on my phone when I was at work. Like, there were so many people talking and it was always on my break, and I would go down to this little cafe. I kind of wanted to be more immersed because I actually really like this. So this is about a girl named Ren who is a peasant in the south of her kingdom, and she aces this test to be enrolled in the most elite military academy there is. But when she gets there, she finds that she does not fit in and that people judge her for the color of her skin, her poverty, and her gender. Ren discovers that long-thought gods are very much alive, and she has a power for shamanism that could be the weapon her empire truly needs. I'm very excited to finish it. The next book I want to listen to is We Are the Ants. This book I remember I would see on all these people's shelves, and I thought the spine was very beautiful. And it also reminded me of my favorite book, Arcel and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe. So I kept looking at it and I was like, no one talks about this. And then I read the description and it sounded fun. So I was like, I'll pick that up. I found it at one of my bookstores. I was like, I'm just gonna buy it. I read a few pages. It was very raunchy, which I thought was kind of strange because it's YA and this is like the first chapter. But we'll see if I end up liking it. So this book is about this boy named Henry. Henry is abducted by aliens and is told that the world will end in 144 days. And they give him a big red button. And if he pushes this button, he will be able to save Earth. But it's ultimately up to him. So yeah, fun. Aliens. Yay. So the next book I have an audiobook is How to Keep Score. So this is my first nonfiction book I will be reading this year. I'm trying to diversify my reading, so I think it's good to read a diverse amount of books. Also, I want to be an author, so it helps with that too. But anyway, this book is basically about how trauma lives in the body and sticks with you throughout your life. And it gives suggestions and helpful ways on how to help with that. And I've heard a lot of good things about it, so I thought I'd pick it up. So the next book I have is Ruin and Rising by Leigh Bardugo. So this is the last book in the Shadow and Bone series. I've read the first two. I need to get to this one, but I really do enjoy the Shadow and Bone series. It's about this girl named Alina who is a sun summoner, which means she can summon the sun, and she's the only sun summoner alive, and they are said to be only of legend. So she swooped away to this palace where a bunch of other summoners called Grisha are, and she trains alongside them trying to hone her power. And there's more, but I don't want to say much more because you should read it, and it might be a little spoilery territory. But yeah, this is the third book, and stuff has gone down, and I am excited to see what happens. So the next book I have is The Girl Prince. This is everywhere, big on TikTok. I've also had this book for like 5 years, and I just never got to it. As you can see, I'm trying to read a lot of old books I've never gotten to. This is basically about a girl named Jude, who when she was 7 years old, her parents were murdered, and she was brought to the Fae realm along with her sisters. And Jude now is older and will do anything she can to ascend the fairy ranks and get to the top. I'm pretty sure the main character is kind of horrible, and there's an enemies to lovers romance, and people love it, and it sounds fun. I've already read a Holly Black book that I really enjoyed, so I'm excited to pick this one up. So the next book I have is The Inexplainable Logic of My Life by Benjamin Hilary Sainz. I love Arcel and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe. It's one of my favorite books I've ever read. It has very much touched me and stuck with me, and this is one of his other books. It's been sitting on my shelf for a while, and I thought I would listen to it on audiobook because it's very large. This is a coming-of-age story about a boy named Sal who has been adopted by his gay father, and it's basically about their relationship and him and his best friend and kind of just going through the world. A very contemporary story. I'm sure I'll love it. I'm sure I will. I loved his other book. So the next audiobook I have is Zachary, Ying, and the Dragon Emperor. I'm very excited for this one. I love Sharon's YouTube channel. It's about this boy named Zachary who has never had very many opportunities to learn about his Chinese heritage. His mom was busy working to make enough money for them to get by, and his school only taught him Western history. So Zach is very unprepared when he discovers he was born to host the first Chinese emperor for a vital mission to seal the leaky portal to the Chinese underworld before it blows wide open. This sounds really fun, like really fun. I've been getting really into middle grade lately, so I am very excited to read this one. So the next book I have is I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. So I think we've all heard of this book. It has kind of taken the world by storm. It's supposed to be really powerful and go over some very heavy topics about Jeanette's childhood and her childhood stardom, and a lot about her relationship with her mother and how that's impacted her life. I chose the audiobook because Jeanette narrates it herself, and I think that sounds even better than reading the book. So I'm very excited for this one. It's gotten like amazing reviews. Everyone's talking about it. I have it on hold at Libby, so when it comes, I will be listening to it. So the next book I have is The Children on the Hill. So this is a thriller, and I don't usually read thrillers, but I've kind of been trying to get into them. This one sounds really cool. This book is about two kids named Eric and Vi who live with their grandma in 1978 in Vermont, and this other little girl named Iris who the grandma has taken in to stay with the family. Iris is very skittish and scared and closed off. Soon she starts to open up to Eric and Vi, and they invite her into their monster hunting club. And Vi knows all too well that monsters need to be hunted. Now in 2019, a woman named Lizzie Shelley, the host of a podcast called Monsters Among Us, is driving up to Vermont to look into the abduction of a young girl who is said to be taken by a monster. That sounds pretty cool. I'm excited. So the next book I have is Babel by R.F. Kuang. This one is also one that's been popping off everywhere, and it's huge. So I want to listen to it on audiobook because I'm a really slow reader and this will take me months to finish. So this book is about an orphan boy named Robin who is taken to Britain by the mysterious Professor Lovell. There, Robin trains in Latin, Ancient Greek, and Chinese, all in preparation to get into Oxford's most prestigious Royal Institute of Translation, also known as Babel. For Robin, Oxford is a utopia dedicated to the pursuit of knowledge, but knowledge obeys power, and as a Chinese boy raised in Britain, he realizes serving Babel might be betraying his motherland. And there's a lot more, but I'll keep it at that for now. Yeah, this one I am very excited to read. So the last book on my audiobook list, TBR, is The Universe in a Nutshell by Stephen Hawking. I think it sounds kind of interesting, and I will definitely be listening to it rather than reading it, and I can kind of go along. So this is basically just Stephen Hawking's Universe in a Nutshell. He's teaching you about the universe. It might be a lot, but we'll see if I get through it, and I like it. So next up we have my physical TBR, so the books I want to read this year. So the first book I have is On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong. So most of these books are going to be pretty short because I like to read shorter books and I prefer to listen to longer books. So this book is a letter from a son to a mother who cannot read. The letter unearths a family history that began before he was born, a history whose epicenter is rooted in Vietnam. It is also a brutally honest exploration of race, class, and sexuality. And it just sounds really good. I've heard a lot of people talk about this one, and I'm very excited to read it. So the next book I have that I want to read is Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ng. I've watched the TV show for this one and I absolutely adored it, and I think it's about time I read the book. So this book is placed in Shaker Heights, a little suburb of Cleveland, and follows Elena Richardson, who is a successful rich woman and loves playing by the rules. A woman named Mia Warren and her daughter named Pearl move in across the street from Elena and threaten the status quo. Elena becomes suspicious of Mia and tries to uncover her secrets, but her obsession will come at devastating costs. I already know I love this story, so I'm very excited to see what I think of the book and see if I like this or the TV show better. So the next book I have is Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief. This is the first Percy Jackson book, and I want to reread these because I haven't reread them in a long time, and the show is coming out. So I thought I might as well start now because I have a habit of doing things too late, and then the show comes out and I'm like halfway through the book and then I have to rush to finish it. I think most people know what this is about, but this book is about Percy Jackson, who is a demigod, and his father is Poseidon and his mother is just a regular person. When creatures are coming after Percy, he is taken to a camp called Camp Half-Blood, where all the Greek gods' children stay for the summer. And he gets into lots of hijinks and things like that and meets friends and goes on an adventure. And it's really fun. The next book I have on my physical TBR is We've Always Lived in a Castle. And I love this edition. And I know a lot of people hate deckled edges, but I really like them and I think it's beautiful and I'm happy I have it. So this book is about a girl named Mary Catherine Blackwell, and she lives in a castle, dislikes dogs, washing herself, and noise, and that's about all I really got. But it's a classic, and I heard it's really good. So the next book I have on my physical TBR is Normal People by Sally Rooney. Sally Rooney is huge. Everyone talks about this book. It's very popular, and people have very differing opinions. I've pretty much seen people love it or hate it, and I want to know where I stand. So I am excited to read this one. This book is about Connell and Marianne, who grew up in a small town, but that's about where the similarities end. Connell is very popular and Marianne is a loner. When they strike up an awkward conversation, sparks fly, and something in their lives change forever. Normal People is a story about mutual fascination, friendship, and love. It takes us from the first conversation to years later of two people who want to stay apart but can't. I'm excited to see what I think. The next book I have is My Year of Rest and Relaxation. So this is another very popular book talk book, and I'm very fascinated by the plot. So I'll go into that right now. This book is basically about this privileged woman who's beautiful and rich, but very depressed. And she decides to take a bunch of pills and sleep for a whole year. And that's the plot. I find that very intriguing for some reason. So I'm very excited to pick this one up. It sounds very strange, so I'm excited to see what I think. The next book I have is Piranesi by Susanna Clark. I am very intrigued by this book. It's supposed to be just a very strange and whimsical story. So Piranesi is about this man named Piranesi who lives in this very strange labyrinth-esque place. Its rooms are infinite, corridors endless, and they are lined with thousands and thousands of statues. Within this labyrinth, an ocean is imprisoned, and it floods rooms and thunders up staircases. But Piranesi isn't scared because he knows the pattern of the ocean and the labyrinth. There's one other person living in this labyrinth, a man called the Other, who visits Piranesi twice a week to ask for his help of research into a great and secret knowledge. As Piranesi looks into this, evidence emerges of another person, and a terrible truth begins to unravel, revealing a world beyond the one Piranesi has always known. So yeah, it sounds fascinating. I always love a good labyrinth. The next book I have is Legends and Latte. This is supposed to be really cute and a cozy fantasy, and I'm always here for a cozy fantasy. So this book is about an orc named Weve, who's had a lifetime of bounties and bloodshed. Weve is hanging up her sword for the last time and decides she's going to open a coffee shop in this small fantasy town. And basically it's just about her running this coffee shop, and it's supposed to be very sweet and very cute. I'm very intrigued to read this. The next book I have is another classic, and that is To Kill a Mockingbird. I think I read this one in school and I really liked it. They had this beautiful edition at Barnes & Noble's and I was like, I have to get it. So I did. So this book is a story about a young girl growing up in the Old South and coming of age. I barely remember this, but I remember really liking it. I'm excited to read it. So this book has also been on my shelf for like 5 years and I just have not read it and I need to read it. I am just going to buckle down and read this one this year. I heard it was great. I read like 50 pages and really liked it, but put it down, and now I'm definitely going to get back into it. Scythes is about this world where there is no disease, no hunger, and no aging. The only way people can die are by these people called the Scythes, who glean people, which means kill, in order to keep the population down. Citra and Rowan are chosen to be apprentice Scythes, a role neither of them want, and they learn the world they live in comes with a heavy price. Sounds fascinating. That's why I picked this up. Next book I have is The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo. So this book is written in verse and is about this girl who grows up in Harlem, who lets her fists and fierceness do the talking. But she has plenty she wants to say and pours all her frustrations into a leather-bound notebook where she writes everything she feels, reciting the words to herself like prayers. When she is invited to join the slam poetry team in her high school, she knows she can never go or get around her mammy's rules, but she can't get the thought out of her head. This one's been on my shelf for a while too, and I'm very excited to read it. The next book I have is The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley. So this is a mystery book, and I want to get into mystery books as well, and I think this is a pretty popular one, so I'm excited to read it. So this book is about a girl named Jess who is broke and alone, and she decides that she wants to go crash at her brother's apartment in Paris. He reluctantly agrees and she heads there, but when she gets there, he's nowhere to be found and has this beautiful apartment, and she has no idea where he got this money from. Her brother Ben's neighbors are a very eccentric bunch and not very kind, and Jess looks into them, trying to see what happened to her missing brother. Yeah, sounds intriguing. So the next book I have is The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett, and this has been on my TBR for so long. I just have a great feeling about this book. I think I'm going to love it. This is a story about two identical twins who grow up in a small southern Black community and run away at the age 16. Many years later, one sister lives in the same southern town with her Black daughter, the same town she once tried to escape, while the other lives across the country, secretly passing as white, with a white husband who doesn't know anything of her past. Though miles apart, the twins still remain intertwined. What will happen when their own daughter's storylines start to intersect? So yeah, it just sounds great. I'm very excited to read this one. So the last book I have on my physical TBR is Bloodmarked by Tracy Dion. And woo, I'm so excited to read this one. This is one of my favorite series. I'm already showed you I'm rereading Legendborn. So this one just takes place after Legendborn, and I already described Legendborn, so if you think that sounds good, read it. I am incredibly excited. So the last section I have for this video is manga. So the first manga I have is Finland Saga #1, and I'm very excited to read this one. This story is about a young boy named Thorfinn who would listen to stories of a wild land far to the west. When his town is raided by Vikings and his family murdered, Thorfinn becomes a terrifying warrior, forever seeking to kill the Vikings' leader, who have raised him. Through everything, Thorfinn still dreams of the Westland, a land with no war or slavery, a land called Finland. I'm excited to read this one. So I already talked about this series, but the next two spy families are on my list. I'm going to finish those, see if I end up enjoying them. So the next manga I have is Snow White with Red Hair, Volume 2. I did not like the first one very much, but I already bought the second one, so I'm going to read it. We'll see if I like it better. So this book is about a girl named Shirayuki who has brilliant red hair and is a famous herbalist, and she kind of has a thing with a prince. That's basically it so far. We'll see if I like the second one. So the last manga I have is Soul Eater Not. I bought this when I was like 12, and I read them when I was like 12. And I don't remember them at all, but I want to reread them because I still have them and see if I like them. So Soul Eater Not is basically a slice of life story about these girls who go to the Soul Eater Academy where they are trained to be Grim Reapers. It's kind of about their lives. There's a bit more plot if I remember right, but I think it's just a cute like little slice of life story. Okay, so that is it. Thank you so much for watching. I am glad I was able to film this, talk about my TBR. I would love a like and a subscribe. It really helps me out, especially a small channel, to get that engagement. So I'd really appreciate that. Of course, only if you want to. You don't have to, but if you want to. And yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.